Would that fall under that idea of community policing? Is where it's getting heavily involved in your community. That idea you saw that police officers on the old New York, Chicago, they walked a beat. Everybody in that community knew Officer Berg. And the second something went down, Officer Berg knew exactly who it was. It was Johnny. And somehow because it sounds like that's what he did. He went out, hey, I see you, you see me.
You know what happened?
What happened?
Police officers started driving police cars. And naturally, you drive down the street, you're driving 25, 30 miles an hour, and you drive by and you don't stop, and you're not walking by the business. And the person says, hey, officer, how you doing? And you stop and talk to that business owner. You know what I mean? So hence we put officers on bicycles downtown recently. It's been a long time coming, and because it forces them to be more interactive with the public, right, and getting to know people. As a police officer, before I went to detectives recently, last year and a half or so, prior to that, I worked the downtown beat as a patrol officer for 10, 12, 15 years maybe. That just loved that downtown.
And now you're off, now that it got completely remodeled, they pulled it out.
So that was one of my goals, was to see the downtown remodel. But
looks great.
Going back,
did a great job.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, not my doing, but I'd like to think I have a little part of that on it.
We'll give you some.
But I really took to heart. Going back to my school resource officer days, talking about relationships, really policing through relationships, right? A lot of these problems, like we said, we can't arrest ourselves or give tickets to people enough to make homeless people fix what they're doing or go away, right? There's always a push for that, and force, and it's like, what does that do? And so I really found, and it takes time, right? It didn't happen overnight, but over the course of about 18 months or so, I had changed my perspective on things of like, how do I better solve a problem? If I can develop relationships with people that I deal with downtown, I'm talking the downtown areas, that's what I can control at the time, right? Is the downtown area. And develop relationships with the people on the street, with the business owners, with the residents, right? And kind of collectively come together and fix something. How do we best do that?
Yes.
You've been here a long time.
Yes.
That was historically and before the park came in.
I was going to say
Library Park. That was going to be the end of me. I remember one day, Library Park which is where the food truck park is now, for those who don't know.
Behind the Lady Lorenz Hotel, between that and the old post office.
Yep. Used to be Library Park, the old library.
The old VFW.
Right. It would just be nonstop.
Homeless.
Nonstop.
Yeah.
And I would go there first thing in the morning, get everybody, because the Lorenz, there's a low-income senior housing. Yep. So all those old folks were up there, and now they're overlooking. There's people outwardly having sex in the middle of the night and using drugs and fighting, and these poor folks are sitting up there having to watch and listen to this all night long. So I'd go through and make it a point every morning. I remember one day before lunch, I went through and, hey guys, we gotta go. Let's go. Come on, get everybody out of there. Got the park clean. I'm like, all right, cool. I went to lunch. I came back an hour and a half later, and there was twice as many people there, and I broke. I'll be honest with you. I went home that night. It was like, and I almost was in tears of like, I don't know what to do. And we tell my wife, I care so much. I care so much about those people in that area and what they're doing. And I don't hate the homeless people that are there. They're not bad people per se, but it's like they were not doing good things either. And I remember going home just absolutely like, what do I do? I'm absolutely distraught over this. Like I try so hard every day to go out and fix these problems for my community, and I can't. And they just keep coming back, almost stronger the next time. And it really kind of made me refocus on how do I solve this. So I started like just taking the time and developing relationships with them, getting to know. There's a guy named Jessica, a guy named Joe, another guy named Nick. People that are my biggest problem people, and just getting to know them and taking the time to get out of the car and speak to them, treat them like a human being, try to fix what they're doing, right? Let's do this to get them more on track, and combined with some accountability, right? And if they weren't doing what they should have been doing, I had to hold them accountable. If that means they were doing something criminal, I'd take enforcement action on them. But do it, not just here's your ticket and I'm leaving, right? Here's your ticket, this is why. Because you didn't do A, B, C, D like I'd asked you to do, right? And through that, I developed a self-proclaimed rule in the downtown area. And we jokingly call it Muni Code 141, which is my ID number, is 141. And it's not a law. It's simply a rule that I had that I asked people to comply with. And that rule was to wear your t-shirt downtown. If you're in the downtown area, and I'm not a tyrant, right? If you're running as a workout, you can have your shirt off. If you're at a public beach or a pool, you can have your shirt off. If you're doing yard work in your own yard, you can have your shirt off. And I don't like it, but you can have your shirt off driving your car. If you're just bebopping through downtown, put your shirt on. Wear your shirt, right? And so it kind of became a joke, but it became a thing too. And I would have conversations with people on the street that would be walking downtown with their shirt off. And I'd be, hey man, can you put your shirt on for me, please? Well, I don't have to put my shirt on, blah, blah, blah. And they argue with me. They stop me, get out of the car, and they go, listen, you're right. I can't make you put your shirt on. It's not a law. It is a rule that I would like you to do for me. It's a favor I'd like you to do for me, right? And here's the reasons why. And I always explain this to them. And this goes to a bigger picture at the end after I'm done with my story.
Please.
And so what's the first thing you do when you get in a fight?
Take off your shirt.
Take my shirt off, right? Yeah, but I don't care what people think about me. You're right. You don't. If you don't care what people think, then you're more likely to commit a crime because you don't care, right? My wife and my kids driving down the street don't want to see you on the street corner, looking all the way you do with your shirt off, standing there sweating or whatever you're doing, or just trying to be cool. Nobody wants to see that. Nobody in this community wants to see that. But you don't care, so you're more likely to commit a crime, right? And so by you simply putting your shirt on, you care. And that's the first step to maybe doing something better in your life, right? And I had this conversation with them. I'd spend some time talking to them, and if they didn't comply, they didn't comply. It is what it is. But at the end of the conversation, almost exclusively, everybody went, you're right, Berg. They put their shirt on, and they'd walk off. And it got to the point where they would start enforcing each other, right? Because if one guy there was a group of people standing around, if one guy had his shirt off, they'd all be like, shirt off, shirt off. But it wasn't about wearing your shirt. It was about caring. About caring about yourself.
Understood.
And if you care a little bit about yourself and maybe what other people think about you, right, then you're more likely to do good things, right? And unfortunately, homeless people are often not respected by people driving by people yelling at them. Cops sometimes show up and treat them, not very well as far as how they spoke to them historically. And I don't blame anybody for doing those things because it's frustrating, right? It's frustrating to drive down the street to the grocery store and seeing the things that we see every day. So people roll down their windows and yell at them. So they go, well, F you, I don't have to, these people hate me. So why am I going to do anything that, makes their life easier? But changing their perspective on things, like you just presented yourself better. If you didn't walk down the street with your shirt on and act like a normal person, nobody's going to yell at you, right? Nobody's going to be upset with you because you're just being a guy walking down the street. Nobody cares. It's all this other craziness that you do that people care about. And that's why people are mad at you. And so you need to change your behaviors in order to change other people's behaviors. And so the t-shirt rule kind of came out of that. And I didn't enforce it outside of the downtown area. This is, it's just kind of a concept I've had of if you're in the downtown area, it's just kind of the area that I patrolled. By no means is it mine, it's everybody's. I developed that relationship with people and they understood because I took the time to explain it to them why it was important and the bigger picture of things. I found people started acting better, right? It's silly.
I know what you mean though.
But then I can go up and go hey, Nick, get your stuff and get going. You'd be like, ooh, okay, Berg, right? And you get his stuff and he'd leave. And guess what? I just solved the problem. I didn't write him a ticket. I didn't yell at him. Now it's hey, get your stuff and go. No, just write me my ticket, right? And it becomes this headbutting thing between the cops and it doesn't solve anything. And so it's not overnight, which is why most people don't do it because it takes work and it takes some dedication. It takes caring to do that on a long-term basis because it took a long time to get those relationships. But it got to the point where I could show up and just go hey, you know what time it is? We got to go. Okay, sorry. And they'd apologize and get their stuff and leave. And eventually it just, they just kind of realized that they didn't want to put me through that anymore, right? Yeah. And it's more about, and I related to your mentor in life, right? You have a mentor as your dad or a good friend or something like that. I have my dad and some startups I've worked for over the years. I just didn't want to disappoint that guy, right? And it became more of that. My wife calls it kind of that father figure role of they just didn't want to disappoint me, right? They didn't want to get to the spot where Berg had to show up and they'd be embarrassed because they were doing something silly.
And you were probably the only person of authority in their life that they had a level of respect for
and some accountability for. And
which
really
is important.
Yeah.
That's an important part of being a human.
I remember one guy, it was, I don't remember his name, he was fresh out of prison. He'd been in prison for 10 years. He was 32, so most of his adult life. And he was new to the downtown area, so I got to reintroduce myself to the new guy and kind of tell him kind of my expectations of them as they're going to be in our area. And about 2 weeks into it, I just drove by and hey man, how you doing? He goes, Berg, I just want to thank you. And I go, what? He's like, I've been in prison my entire adult life. I wake up and somebody tells me where to go eat, where to go to the bathroom, where to do this, but kind of being in the military, right? They tell you where to go. And now they throw me out on the street because I'm done with my term and I don't have a place to live. I don't know when to go eat, when to go do this. And so I start doing stupid stuff because I don't know what else to do. But you come by every day and you take the time to hold me accountable, make sure I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, ask me if I'm doing okay, right? And that's all it takes. And he said, I appreciate that. I need some sort of structure in my life, and you're helping provide that structure. Obviously, I can't do that 24/7. That's not, it's not plausible. But I provided enough that he acknowledged me through that. And I'm like, wow, mind blown. that was wild. Like, here's some guy's been in prison his whole adult life. Just thank me for giving him a little structure. But it was because I respected him. I was respectful towards him.
I think that's key. Yeah.
And